2, 3, hit back.
Be Different Podcast is here March 13th, 2018. We're not at Dana's this time. We're back at our usual spot, downtown Cincinnati, and this is an important time of year. But before we get started, we want to make sure that everyone who's listening, please follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud. We're on everything. And make sure when you search Be Different, don't spell Be Different like you're used to seeing it in the dictionary. You spell it B-E-D-F-R-N-T. I've had to answer a lot of questions concerning, why we spell our podcast the way we do. We just do. We're the Be Different Podcast, B-E-D-F-R-N-T. Make sure that you follow us right now. I want you to do it right now. Don't waste any time. Make sure you find it. If you want to watch us, obviously YouTube's the best place to do it. If you want to listen to us in your car, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, those are the best places to go. Okay, so now as we move forward, we have the legend, the Xavier Musketeer, Andy Mac Williams. He is here to talk Muskies. Andy, we know you were at the Big East tournament. How was life for you in New York? I know you had some trouble getting out there due to some weather conditions, but I know you were there. You were in one piece. You got there. We were concerned for you last week when we talked.
I'm sure you were really, really upset about my travails in travel. Delta Airlines, I love them, but they sent me down a couple of false paths, a couple of canceled flights. Finally, sanity prevailed, and I went back through Newark Airport, which is a much better alternative than LaGuardia. LaGuardia always scares me because Rikers Island, that prison, is right across Jamaica Bay there. I don't like that place. I watch a lot of Law and Order, and almost everybody who does bad stuff ends up at Rikers Island. So we made it in, no problem. We had a great Saturday. Actually, after Xavier got eliminated, we went to McSorley's Pub down in Soho, which is the original Irish bar, and we were there for many hours. They don't have any TVs there, but we found other things to do. And we sold our tickets, our tickets, because Xavier wasn't playing. We never sell tickets when Xavier's involved, but those Philadelphia Yahoos, the Villanova faithful, we like tripled our money on the tickets, and it paid for the whole trip. It was a beautiful thing.
No, that sounds very well done. Well done. And McSorley's, did you enjoy some brews over there?
I'll tell you, they got some stuff down there. It was rather unique. The bar tab was astronomical, but luckily I didn't have to pay for it. I stay below I use my pseudo celebrity status to get a lot of free stuff, because Xavier, obviously, they're the typical Jesuits. They look at their watch. What have you done for me lately? Which is great. I mean, I love them, all that whole bit, but.
Well, what
Not
about
a whole lot of cash coming the other way there?
What about in terms of on the court? What were your thoughts? Game 1 against St. John, Xavier was rolling 88-60. That was the return of Kaiser Gates. Kaiser Gates seemed to be in old form. Trayvon Blewett, the star, had a great game, 88-60. It looked like the Muskies were rolling.
It was the perfect storm for Xavier, especially the second half. They outscored the St. John's Johnnies 55-31 in the second half. As you say, Kaiser Gates looked like the NCAA Kaiser Gates of last year. 6 for 7 from the field. He hit 4 threes, 16 points. And Trayvon Blewett and J.P. McCura were Batman and Robin. They were Abbott and Costello. They were Tonto and the Lone Ranger. They were back the way they were last year in the tournament.
Like that.
They embraced each other before the opening tip against St. John's. You could tell that they were reveling in the March Madness foray, and then at the end, St. John's, that Bashir Ahmed guy who was a senior, who was going to go get his real job now, he got a little feisty. And my advice to St. John's was, if you don't want people to run the score up, don't press. I mean, they pressed. So what is Xavier's supposed to do? Inbound the ball, give it to them so they can lay it up. It was ridiculous. And then the Johnnies apparently tried to break into the Xavier dressing room later. I mean, a bunch of big babies. And Bashir Ahmed, so long to you. And then we came to the semis, and Xavier had a great first half. It was the perfect storm.
They looked unbeatable in the first half.
Unbeatable. They were up 18 at one juncture, and The bright spots, obviously, were Paul Scruggs, who played his best game as a Muskie, at least in the first half, and also Karem Cantor, who had a big game. But you got to give Providence credit. They're feisty. Ed Cooley is a resourceful coach. He used every tool in his bag of tricks. He zoned, he pressed, and finally he hit on a winning strategy. Alpha Diallo, who I've been touting all year, and you've basically disregarded it.
I don't disregard him, but I will say that you were on Alpha Diallo and Providence as a whole this year, way before me. I will definitely give you that. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue with you on that. I'll give that to you.
Thank you for conceding that point. But Diallo played terrific defense against Blewett, and Blewett against a great defender, a great long, quick lateral guy like Diallo. Is vulnerable to be locked up. And JP lost his mind. Early in the second half, he completely lost his mind. I don't know what happened. He got some bad Gatorade in the dressing room. He threw that behind-the-back pass to the Providence cheerleader, which was well executed on one bounce, but it resulted in a turnover. And I truly think those guys will get refocused now for the first-round game in Nashville. But they had every opportunity to win the ball game. Trayvon Blewett, if he makes the layup, it's over.
What happened with the missed layup? How does Trayvon Blewett, one of Xavier's best all-time players, miss a layup to seal that game? Trayvon makes that layup. Xavier moves on to play in the Big East Championship. How does Trayvon Blewett miss that shot?
I've heard many theories. I talked to Joe Sunderman and Byron Larkin after the game, and they thought that Trayvon maybe took a bit of a bad angle to the basket, and he was betwixt and between dunking the ball and laying it up, and he was slowing down to try to garner contact to get a three-point play. He dunks it or lays it in there. It's a 4-point game with like 11 seconds left. Or even if he doesn't do anything, just circles the wagons and draws the foul, he's automatic for 2 free throws. But it's easy for us to say, you played the game. Now you could react or talk about the reaction in those pressure situations. Trayvon, the bottom line is, Xavier lost the game. They missed 1 million shots around the bucket. But they're 11-1 this year in games decided by 7 points or less. That is a pattern. You're going to lose a close game like that periodically. PC is a good ball club. Kyron Cartwright played All-America first-team caliber point guard in that game, and Diallo was terrific. So, write it off. It didn't really cost anything to Xavier except they didn't get in the Midwest Regional as the number 1 seed. And I don't know if that's a bad thing, really. When you look at the Midwest bracket versus the bracket that Xavier is in, the West Regional leading to Los Angeles, I think Xavier may be better off in the West. That Midwest where Kansas ended up is like loaded on steroids.
Well, I agree with you to some point, but your stars have to play well in March if you're going to be able to move on. Providence's stars did, especially in the second half. Even Nate Watson stepped up, had 14 points in that game, but Cartwright, the point guard, play after play, he had those couple fadeaway jumpers on Scruggs in the corner. And then you look at Xavier, JP 9 points, 4 of 10, Trayvon 13 points, 2 of 14 from the field, 1 of 7 from 3. You cannot win games in March if your stars play like that.
Yeah, but that was not a knockout game. That was not a must-win for Xavier. They still got a number 1 seed, whereas Providence, Providence has done this before. They've played well in the Big East at Madison Square Garden, and look at their record in the NCAA tournament. They haven't won a game, I don't think, in the 5 years of the new Big East, whereas Chris Mack's overall record in the NCAA tournament is pretty damn impressive. 3 Sweet 16s, an Elite 8, a 10-7 overall record for Mack in 7 trips, now the eighth trip coming up to the NCAA tournament. There are very few programs in the country with 10 NCAA wins since the 2009-2010 season. So in a knockout game, now Mack has gotten his wish. Xavier called their shot to go to Nashville. As a number 1 seed, they could pick where they wanted to go specifically. He's in Nashville with a Friday, Sunday, which he wants. They like the hotel and transportation situation in Nashville because you can basically walk from the hotel, I guess. And I think they've got some friends down there. They have a gym that they like. They played Georgia in that Division I secret scrimmage 2 years ago at this Nazarene whatever place down in Nashville. So they'll go back there to practice. They're comfortable there, and it's just a short trip from Cincinnati. It's all the Ducks are in a row here, playing a 16 seed in the first round for Xavier to motor right along to Staples Center in Los Angeles. Now that 8-9 game may be a little sticky. We've got the Missouri Tigers and their boy wonder Michael Porter Jr. waiting in the wings, and who knows if he's has two legs that operate. I don't know. I guess he does. And what the other team is, our Florida State, our friends the Seminoles. Now they may be better prepared if they do beat Missouri to play Xavier. I mean, they had no idea that Xavier even had a zone in their back pocket. I don't think in that game. They certainly didn't play that way, but.
Well, so you're happy, right? You're happy. You're basically saying the Providence game didn't matter. It's a wash. You're not going to look back at it.
No. You don't even review the tape.
You don't review the tape. So then it's a quick change of selection show. Xavier gets the 1 seed. What were your thoughts on the selection show on TBS? Because there's been a lot of makeup, and a lot of people have talked about how poor the selection show was laid out.
I thought it was absolutely putrid. They took all the drama out of it. I used to love it when they revealed the bracket, bracket by bracket. There was a lot of tension there. I remember last year we knew that metrically, logically that Xavier was in, but it went to the last frame. The last bracket, I'm going, if there's an 11 out there, they better be there, and they were, thank goodness. But, I mean, how complicated is it? You just throw the brackets up there and you go region by region, maybe reveal the number 1 seeds at the top of the show. But no, they had to go with this, slice of life audience. I mean, that was really, those were
the audience
people off the street. They were all SEC and ACC people.
Well, and the audience didn't even seem engaged. They didn't
weren't.
really react to almost anything. And then you had Gumbel and Ernie Johnson. The audio was completely off. You would see Ernie Johnson's mouth move, and then you would hear the audio seconds after. And the layout for how they did the at-large burst didn't make any sense at all. You're right. There was no drama. Teams that haven't been to the NCAA tournament in a long time, bubble teams, the way that they were notified that they weren't in the tournament didn't make a whole lot of sense. I was obviously not a fan of the way that TBS laid this out.
Well, then they cue to the live shots of the various teams, and there's a satellite delay. I mean, you've got to figure that out. They made the teams look like really stupid. They're sitting there looking at their cell phones and talking to their girlfriends, and all of a sudden there's a 7-second delay, and then they get excited. They get cued. I mean, can't you figure that out? And, of course, our friend Charles Barkley, you could put his college basketball knowledge in a thimble and still have room for a quart of milk. I mean, he's very entertaining. He has the world's worst golf swing. Chuck is an interesting guy. I'm sure he contributed to Bruce Pearl's little slush fund down there at Auburn to get some of those great players that they got. For the 7th year in a row, he calls Xavier Xavier. I think he did pick them, actually, to make the Final Four in some iteration. And then he and Kenny the Jet Smith put up that bracket. They went through. You couldn't even read it. It was so small. It was like.
Why are they doing college basketball? Why can't we just get college basketball guys to do college basketball? Why do we have? And I don't mind Barkley and I don't mind Kenny the Jet.
They're bright
great
guys. They're funny
They do
guys.
a good job with the NBA stuff.
Yeah.
But NBA is a little bit lighter, a little bit looser. That's their day-to-day. And the NBA is what they cover. They don't cover college basketball. Why can't we get college basketball guys to cover the tournament? I mean, everybody that watches basketball at this level throughout the year, you want a guy that does the same. You don't want to deal with Charles Barkley. He literally doesn't even know any of the players on any of the teams. I don't think throughout the hour and a half or 2 hours that he even mentioned an individual player about how talented they were, what they did in game situations.
I watched an interview with Barkley though about a month ago, and he said that he hadn't been watching the NBA because he's been getting ready for this, and which is hilarious because if you've been studying college basketball for even just a month and you don't know one person's name,
if you were studying college basketball for an hour, I would be able to lay out people's names. Like how do you get ready for the show for 2 hours and not know any names, and then you pronounce schools' names wrong? And you don't know where any place is from. Like I don't understand how Barkley gets on there and does that. He looks unprepared.
Give me Gus Johnson.
Well, give me somebody.
why do
Give
they
me
do
John
that?
Rosty. Give me somebody that does college basketball.
Why do they do that?
Steve Lavin would be great for that.
Lavin would be great.
Yeah.
There's a million guys that you could go to that would be better.
Andy McWilliams?
Why not Brad Redford?
Right, there you go. Maybe we just do it on the podcast next year. We see if we can get those rights.
I mean, you got to get college basketball guys in there. I'm gonna lose my mind. We could go over this and over this, and on top of the other guys, Andy. And
How are we going to pay for that in Bitcoin?
Yeah, something. We'll make something
it's
up.
not going to happen.
Well, Andy, we need to get to all of the specialists, the college basketball experts that do not see Xavier moving far, saying that they're one of the worst one seeds in years. Obviously, the worst one seed in this tournament. You know, guys like Jay Billis, Seth Greenberg, a big ACC guy. What do you say to these guys that say Xavier is the worst one seed in years?
What did the Dickie V say? He usually is anti-Xavier. Billis has always been anti-Xavier ever since the peach basket was used as a receptacle for basketball shots. But who else? The only guy all year that has said anything positive about Xavier long-term is Tommy Crean. And he picked, and he's like a television neophyte, and I think he does a good job. If I were advising Tommy Crean, I'd say stay on TV, do not go to Georgia, because it's not going to come out. It's not going to work out well, except for your bank account with a 5-year deal at whatever. But that's probably why he's making that. They all diss Xavier. They're a number one seed, but they ignore them, which is, every bracket I've seen that has been put out by a so-called expert has Xavier exiting at the latest in the Sweet 16. They look at last year's Gonzaga score, and they figure that Xavier will be swamped in the Sweet 16 at the Staples Center by Gonzaga, and they go, well, it's a big edge for Gonzaga because it's on the West Coast. Don't they look at the geography? Spokane is about 9,000 miles from Los Angeles. I mean, you've got to really try hard to get from Spokane, Washington to LAX to the Staples Center. So I don't see that as it's a basketball court.
So you don't see Gonzaga as a hiccup. You see no hiccups.
Potentially, yeah. I've watched them a little bit. And
Well, their conference is really good.
well, they haven't lost a game since January 17th, but they do play in the West Coast Conference, and the only team with a heartbeat and a pulse and the ability to produce saliva in that period is St. Mary's. St. Mary's beat them in Spokane at the, what do they call it? It's not the dog pound. Yeah, it's the dog pound.
Yeah, what seed St. Mary's?
St. Mary's
Yeah,
did not make the tournament.
They were
because
saying.
Bubble burst.
Their
Bubble,
coach,
bubble, bubble
Randy
burst.
Bennett,
Bubble,
will
bubble,
not
bubble
play
burst.
any teams in the non-conference. He
Yeah,
will,
they were-
will not go on the road. He will not play any team. Apparently, he had a chance to schedule Creighton, and he didn't want to play that game. And so he's a sly old dog. He's so sly, he's in the NIT. But they haven't played anybody in their league at all. I mean, they look like they have some talent, but they lost the big guy, Karnhuski. He's back in Poland making sausage, and or playing pro in Europe. And they lost Nigel Williams-Goss, who is maybe one of the top 5 players statistically in the country last year, according to Ken Pomeroy. So, I mean, they're good. They've got the Japanese guy who is very agile.
Yeah.
And
Well, they're always good. Mark Fee is a
they're
great
good.
coach. They got a
coach.
great track record. I mean, yeah, if Gonzaga gets there, which is you got to win 2 games to get there, and that's no guarantee. They could see Ohio State, possibly South Dakota State, the way that they can shoot the ball. But take a look at Xavier's first round matchup. Should be no problem. You get to the second round, you got to move them into. You got to space it out into 4-team tournaments, and that's what Xavier will have in Nashville. Their first game, they'll need to take care of business. That'll be a Friday evening, and then the possible matchup with Missouri and Florida State. We touched on it, but Missouri, they get back Michael Porter. If Missouri can get past Florida State, Michael Porter continues to get healthy. Does he concern you at all, the way that he can score?
Well, Brad, let's not overlook. I'm superstitious. I want to give.
We're going to go to the 16 seed here.
Texas Southern and North Carolina Central a lot of respect. Now,
Oh my gosh, this is tough. I can't believe we're even talking about the first game.
Since the dawn of the 64-team tournament in 1985, the number ones are 128-0 against the 16 seeds. I do not think that Xavier will lose this game.
Of course not.
Texas Southern is a different type of animal.
Can we
This
just
is
talk
Mike
about the Elite
Davis.
Eight?
This is Mike Davis, Indiana, UAB. He went 0-13 because he was on the road to pay his own salary for those first 13 non-conference games. He's got a boatload of transfers, as usual. He has the guard from UMass who started there for 3 years. He's got the little point guard who's 5'7", but is averaging 27 a game over the last 8. He also has that Maverick 7'2" guy who played briefly for Auburn against Xavier about 3 years ago.
I don't remember that at all.
He was kicked out of Maryland. He was kicked out of Maryland for shoplifting, but he is alive and well.
I mean, I guarantee you, whatever
there.
you say about Texas Southern will be more than what I know. So
Texas Southern has a better RPI than all the 14 seeds in this year's tournament field. So I think Xavier will crush them like a ripe grape. They are favored to beat North Carolina Central. NC Central, by the way, is the second most popular team in Durham, North Carolina, behind Duke. You're all right. I mean,
we're going to move. We're moving to the second round.
If you assume you make an ass out of you and me, Brad, I'm just saying we have to give these teams.
I mean, you just got to look at the track record, though. 128-0 for one seed. It's not going to happen.
No,
Xavier's going to move on. We'll be just fine.
All right.
So Missouri, Florida State. Who do you think wins that game? Who does Xavier play in the second round?
Florida State is, they sort of live on their talent, and they try to stuff it down your throat as they did try last year against Xavier. And so I think Missouri, with a reasonable effort from Michael Porter Jr., is the winner in that. It's the 8 over the 9. But Missouri is in the early stages of a rebuild under Quanzo Martin, and I don't think I think Xavier will beat them. Porter Jr. Played some minutes, took a lot of shots in the SEC tournament, but they were on the losing end to a mediocre Georgia team. So I don't think he's ready for prime time here. Chris Mack will game plan to really irritate that guy. It'll be a lot like the big guy from Marquette 2 years ago who went on to the NBA.
Ellenson?
I think
Henry Ellenson?
I think Xavier will have some special stuff ready for Porter to discourage him early in the game. And I would fully expect X to mix in on the second game of a short weekend where Mizzou has very little time to prepare. And if they've looked at the last 10 games of Xavier tape, they haven't seen very much zone defense. I think we'll see some 1-3-1, some 2-3, some interesting looks from Coach Mack, and Xavier will move into the Sweet 16 at Staples Center.
All right, and then we don't want to look too far because this weekend obviously is extremely important. You'll be in Nashville. I'll be in Nashville Friday and Sunday as well watching Xavier and UC because they'll be in Nashville as well. Will this be Xavier's time? Is this the team that is ready to make the Final Four push? Can we go out? Can we say that, or do you not want to go that far yet? Do you want to wait, Andy? Because you can. I'm going to allow you. I'm going to allow you to wait to say if they're going to the Final Four until next week. But if you want to give us this now, I'm more than happy to.
I'm very superstitious. I want to give the opposition more credit than they deserve. Gonzaga does worry me in the Sweet 16. They are maybe not quite as good as last year, not quite as experienced, but there are a lot of the same people back for Gonzaga. They've added some nice international pieces in the Japanese kid. They have the French big guy Tilly, who is now a frontline player. He's not coming off the bench. And Gonzaga does worry me. And other teams in the bracket that worry me are the Michigan Wolverines. They say now that they're actually playing some defense, which,
Well, and you know that Michigan can score. You got Mo Wagner, you got Rockman, Xavier Simpson is playing well, Duncan Robinson has been coming on of late. And the way that Michigan plays, they go 5 out on the perimeter, tough ball screens, similar to what Villanova may run at times, but a team that can really score and put Xavier in tough spots.
Yeah, they ripped through the Big Ten tournament at Madison Square Garden, that hors d'oeuvre, that warm-up for the Big East. They beat Michigan State and Purdue, which is saying a lot on back-to-back games.
That's my question, though.
They're very good.
Not to look too far ahead, but if you're looking at the bracket, and let's just say seeds play out, who would you rather play, Michigan or UNC, to go to the Final Four?
Well, I think North Carolina is pretty imposing.
'Cause to me, you have-
I wouldn't want to play Carolina just based on their
Carolina.
track record. The fact, obviously they won the national championship
They've got
a year ago.
They've got key guys, Pinson and Joel Berry and Luke
Luke May.
Luke May, who all played on a national championship team and who played the year before on a runner-up. That team that Villanova beat.
So U of M kind of plays like Villanova. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah.
Because like it's a tough matchup.
Those are both going to be. I mean, you get to the Elite Eight, you're going to play a great team. Carolina, obviously super talented. Joel Berry really concerns me at the point guard position. I just think that guy is a winner and he knows how to get it done. And Luke May does the same thing. Michigan, I think, is very good. I don't think from a talent perspective they're quite as good as North Carolina. So if I had to pick one, I would prefer Michigan over Carolina in that Elite Eight game.
And you make a good analogy, Michigan to Villanova. But Michigan is no Villanova, talent-wise.
I understand that.
Villanova has like 5 NBA guys, maybe 4.
I agree.
NBA guys.
I'm just saying they play a similar brand of.
They do.
Just the way they stretch you out.
Yeah, 4 or 5 guys they can all shoot. And
They do.
and that's
Wagner's
been tough for Xavier.
Wagner's an NBA guy.
Duncan Robinson is a Division III guy from Williams College. Give me a break. No, he's very good. He's very good.
He's good. Rockman's a really good player, too.
Rockman has come out of nowhere.
Yeah,
He
Rockman's
was like
been really
deep on
good.
the bench. Xavier played them 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Up at in Ann Arbor and drilled them. So
Oh, yeah.
and Rockman hardly played in that game. If he'd played, maybe it would have been a different result. That guy's really good. But yeah, I think Xavier has a shot to get to face North Carolina. I'm looking at the bracket now, and it's so small you can hardly read the print here. The Providence Friars, man. If Ed Cooley can ramp it up for the NCAA, PC has always been good in the Big East tournament. I mean, they won 3 overtime games this year.
I think Providence is done. I think they're
They may
done.
be
I think
done.
they lose that first
They'll
round
be
game.
like Seton Hall when they had Whitehead 2 years ago. They shoot their wad in New York City. It's sort of like, we've made it. But, Kyra, they've got the seniors now. If Cartwright and Bullock and Lindsay all play well, they've got Diallo. They've got some depth. Watson, the freshman, is developing. I like that 6'6" guy from George Mason, Isaiah, Jackson. He's good.
They just put so much into that Big East tournament. So much energy. Coach Cooley, he was smiling. He was running around. They played fantastic. They've played overtime games. I just think it's challenging for Providence to turn the page and be ready for a really good Texas A&M team. And then you look at Seton Hall and you look at NC State. I don't know where I just went with that, Greg.
I don't know. There's a lot of A's and M's in there.
There was a lot of A's and N's that I was throwing around.
You jump brackets there, Brad.
Well, because I want to go to Seton Hall.
Oh, okay.
Do you think Seton Hall takes down NC State, Andy?
I would doubt it severely. There are things going on at Seton Hall. It's a seamy slice of life there with Kevin Willard. He loves the drama. Sanogo and Desi Rodriguez, they have a love-hate relationship. I don't know. I think it's the end of the line.
I think so, too. Well, Kevin Willard was on Fox doing the games after Seton Hall lost.
See, he's trying to get a job for next year. I think he might be out of there.
Yeah, you could tell. I mean, the fact that after Seton Hall losing, he is then doing the games after in the Big East tournament, I think says a lot about where he thinks his job will be at next year.
He's pulling a Steve Lavin.
Yeah.
That's what Lavin did when he got the gong at St. John's, and he's had a nice career.
He's trying to get some tape on there. So, well, Andy Mack, you are heading to Nashville on Friday morning. You'll watch the Xavier Musketeers, as you think, play Texas Southern, the 16 seed, and then you think Missouri would be the second-round game. So, Andy Mack, are you excited about this week, what you have going forward? I will be there as well.
Well, actually, Chuck Mayshak, the UC sycophant, and I have we are holding a prayer breakfast around 11 a.m. in Nashville. It's Musketeers and Bearcats lying down together and uniting to back each other because of the pod system and a freak of nature, UC and Xavier are playing in the same geographical site. And we're going to bury our hatred. We're going to bury the rivalry.
You're going to bury Andy, you are going to bury your hatred.
I didn't think it was possible.
You're going to do this?
root for UC?
Are you really going to do this?
Chuck and I have talked. We've had an exchange of ideas, and I've decided that I'm going to suck him in And I'm going to get up there in front of this joint meeting of UC and Xavier fans and tell them what I really feel.
Oh, there you go.
It's a setup.
It's a trick.
It's a setup.
It's a big ruse.
I think UC's got an easier path, man. I'd trade spots. I'd take the 2 seed in that bracket and be UC and
just prefer.
Or Georgia State though. That's Ron Hunter. Played with Harper up at Miami. Very good coach. Xavier saw him 2 years ago.
R.J. Hunter's in the league
Jacksonville.
right now.
R.J. Hunter and they've got another really good guard who's taken over that. R.J. Hunter. They play zone. They play nothing but zone. They zone.
Love zone.
They morph. I think.
Wait, they play nothing but zone?
Yeah, nothing but zone. And UC could go.
You're doing a good job of like laying that.
They'll need
peaceful.
Justin Jennifer to make shots, and that's not happening. Kane Broom. Those
Kane
guys.
can shoot.
In the warm-up.
He can fill it up a little
He
bit.
can shoot
He's
a little
good.
bit.
They're good.
UC's got some players, man. They
UC
got
I
Gary
give
Clark,
him
Jacob
credit.
Evans,
Jennifer
Washington.
Yeah.
He can't really shoot, but Kane can shoot. They'll pick apart the zone pretty easily.
UC can shoot. Cumberland can fill it up from 3.
Yeah.
I like UC has a great bracket. Nevada, I think, could be a challenging game for them with how efficient Nevada is offensively. But yeah, I like UC's path.
Nevada.
Yeah. Nevada's got a nice team.
What league do they play in? The Western Athletic? That conference is totally lost.
Andy,
It
these
used to
teams,
be a great
these teams
conference.
come into the NCAA tournament with a lot to
Nevada.
prove. Nevada has a lot to prove. They want to put the Wolfpack on the mark.
Is Nevada whack, Andy? Are they whack?
They're in the WAC. Yeah, the WAC used to be a great league. Everybody went to Hawaii every year. They had BYU. Now it's that league has been totally drained. It's like Conference USA. It's like the receptacle for all the tired and hungry and worthless teams. It's a lot like the All-American. What is it, the AAC?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
I mean, who's in that league?
I don't know.
Geez,
know.
Connecticut wants to get out of there. They want to come to the Big East. They just have to find something to do with their football. I would suggest pull the plug. Pay off the 8 coaches you're still paying and close your stadium down and turn it into a parking lot or a used car lot. And come play with us in the Big East, Connecticut.
I could see it. I
Come
could see
on
it. Bring
down.
Jim Calhoun back.
That's what they
They
need.
fired Kevin Ollie.
They needed to.
They're trying to get out of his contract. Bring Calhoun back. And let it.
He's probably the worst coach to ever win a national title in the history of college basketball.
Kimba Walker did very nice things for him.
Was that the Kemba year?
No,
No, that wasn't Kimba?
it was Shabazz.
That was
Oh,
Shabazz.
Shabazz
Napier.
That was when
Yeah.
they beat UK in the
Yeah.
final. That was awful.
Yeah,
But,
Kimba was one of Calhoun's last stands.
UC actually might do pretty well. And that year in '92 when Huggs took them to the Final Four in Minneapolis, and he had all those JUCO players, and they got every break in the bracket. They
Do you
got all the
have
upsets.
Andy? Do you have a Final Four picked?
No, I have no idea. The last time I picked the winner, Moby Dick was a minnow. That's a Pete Gillen line. I have no idea. My bracket is usually like blowing up after the first group of games on Thursday afternoon. I have no idea. All I know is that Xavier has a chance to get to the Final Four. It's going to take a little Houdini act, some Chris Mack magic. JP and Trayvon are going to have to play Batman and Robin like they did last year in that run to the Elite Eight.
Yep.
Kaiser Gates is going to have to hit shots and
have to play
and
great.
move his feet and play defense. And Tyreek is going to have to figure out how to make a bank shot and maybe dunk it periodically.
And Quentin Gooden and Paul Scruggs need to
Scruggs,
continue to play well. That dynamic duo at the point guard position, they need to play well.
Karam Cantor needs to get the opposing guys, big guys, in foul trouble with those sneaky little flips and post moves that he's got. I mean, they've got a nine-man rotation. Xavier does. They have 4 senior guys. They have
lock
depth,
for the Elite Eight.
experience. They have a great coaching staff. They have the zones in their back pocket. This team, I look at it. You think of all the parameters and all the metrics and all. Just boil it down. This team is better than the team last year. They're
This team is-
deeper, they're younger, they're more dynamic.
Versatility, a
They're
depth, a
versatile.
1 seed, outright Big East champs. This team is battle tested. Xavier Musketeers are going into Nashville, and they need to take care of business.
They're better than they were last year, Brad. I mean, maybe they got a better draw last year with Maryland, Florida State, Arizona, and then Gonzaga in the Elite Eight. But I think this team can do heavy, heavy damage. And I love the way that even as a 1 seed, they are operating below the national radar.
People don't like them. They don't like them.
You're not going to have all those stupid feature TV guys asking for a piece of you. It's just like, well, Xavier, they were lucky to get a number 1. It was a freak of nature that they got a number 1. And it should have been Kansas, Duke, North Carolina. Oh, Kansas did get a 1, but Duke, the Blue Bloods from the ACC, they should have gotten the number 1. We all know that. They'll prove it. I think Xavier's in a position to do very well here.
Well, Andy, we think the same. Xavier Musketeers, they will take on the 16 seed in Nashville Friday night. First game for the Musketeers in the NCAA tournament. Andy Mack will be there. Brad Redford will be there. Greg Richard and Nick Given will not be there. But Andy, as always, we appreciate you coming on the Be Different podcast. That is Kicking It Old School with Andy Mack.